Hey guys, welcome to another live stream. This is a bit of an unexpected one. Usually I do this on a Thursday. Today is a Monday. The reason I wanted to do it is really because we have a data drop today that is super important and super interesting. And some of us, including myself, have been waiting for this data drop a long time. So let's get into it. This is some of you will remember, long time watchers of the channel will remember that there is an actual interview on the channel with Dave Feldman. So Dave Feldman is someone who came to light some years ago. He's an engineer, and he was really interested in the fact that when he went on a low carb diet, his LDL cholesterol went through the roof, and he was concerned about it, and he wanted to understand. And he did a deep dive in the science, and that's basically led us to where we are today, which is that he was able to crowdfund this paper done by Matthew Budoff at the Lundquist Institute. Is really the person who did the studies, looked at the individuals who did this. 100 different, so 100 individuals uh, were signed up for this study. That's what they could do. They all saw it through. And we now have the results at baseline and the results in 1 year, right? So what does that mean? It means they did CT angiograms. So they looked at the actual calcified and non-calcified plaque in the coronary arteries. And they looked at who progressed over a year. Now, we know from other data sets, this is far from the first time this methodology has been used. It's been used many times. And we know that you can identify, for example, if you have a very high risk population, like people with familiar FH, familiar hypercholesterolemia, you will see that their heart disease progresses, or some subset of them, their heart disease progresses rapidly in a year, and you can measure that, right? So what this study found, just to give it away in the intro, give away the results, which they also do in their synopsis. They give away the results. Cholesterol, meaning LDL, ApoB, however you want to measure it, predicted absolutely nothing. It's a flat line. What did predict things was your coronary artery calcium score. If you had calcified plaque, even if you had non-calcified plaque, that was a good indicator that your plaque was going to increase over the time. Now, I'd say the increases that we see, it would be interesting for me. So they've done, I think they're going to release the data with the comparing this population with the Miami heart population. I think they're going to release that soon. And that's super interesting to me because the Miami heart population is a population matched control group, if you like, a natural control group of people who had the same variables but did not have the super high cholesterol, right? So it would be interesting for me to see, the increase. So that's this slide here, the increase in plaque burden, which we can see here. So everyone's plaque, not everyone's plaque, but most people who had plaque saw their plaque increase, right? But not by very much. This is a 0.8% increase, from what I understand. And what we know from other data is that if your coronary artery calcium score does not increase or increases by less than 10% per year, that's good, right? This is 1 year, so you would expect a 10% increase. We saw an increase of 0.8%. So in general, this is good. This is promising. This is interesting. Does it mean that people are completely protected from heart disease? Of course not. There's a lot of other things going on, as I talk about in my course, and if you're interested, we can talk about it. Get on a call. I'm happy to give you a lecture on the root causes of heart disease, or you can watch a webinar that I'm just releasing this week too. But the point is that you're not, just because someone has these super high cholesterol levels, they're not protected. But it does seem like progression is happening fairly slowly compared to the population average. Again, that's a hypothesis. I would want to see more data before we can verify or invalidate that hypothesis. Now, what is interesting to me is this line here. So this is proportion of non-calcified plaque and calcified plaque in among the 100 people. So all these 100 dots are the 100 people at baseline, and these 100 dots are the 100 people after a year, right? And as you expect, as I mentioned, most of the lines are going upwards. So for most people, if you had a non-zero score, and that's really what they gave away in the title, plaque begins plaque, I think is the name of this paper, right? Yeah, plaque begets plaque is what they titled it. So most people with a non-zero score saw that score go up. However, there are some people with a non-zero score, this individual here, who saw his or her number go down, right? And I think there's one more like that. I can't find it just offhand, but a lot of them, Most of them are going up. Some of them are kind of stable. Most of them are fairly stable. As you see, this is the average line of increase. It's not particularly big. But the fact that some are going down, remember these are people with an average of 235 cholesterol or even more, LDL, or more than that, right? So that's interesting. This is the data overall. So again, ApoB doesn't change, doesn't determine anything, whether you look at overall ApoB or the changes in ApoB. But the baseline coronary artery calcium score is really predictive of disease progression, right? That's so. If you just look at all the lines on this chart and look at this one of the baseline plaque and progression over time, it's pretty clear that that's the only thing that's reaching statistical significance. Pretty clear to anyone who's ever read one of these graphs. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have to say. I would not usually have released this video today. I would have done a longer blog post or something like that. But I thought it was important that we talk about this data because it's super interesting data, right? And what's the takeaway? I mean, the takeaway for me is there's two takeaways. Number one is there's a lot of people, I don't know if there's a lot of people, but there's some people saying, look, because we are on ancestrally appropriate low carb diets, we are protected from heart disease completely. I don't think this data supports that, right? There were no deaths or anything, but in a year, you wouldn't necessarily expect a death. So certain people saw disease progression, and that's a concern, right? And there are things we can do to lower that apart from the low carb diets. Again, that's a different lecture. But the second takeaway is, if you are concerned about sky high cholesterol, or if you're concerned about heart disease in general, I mean, for God's sake, get a scan, get a coronary artery calcium scan, and if you get a 0 score, that is super protective. If you have a non-zero score, you probably want to follow it up with another scan. These are not cheap in some places, but they're not super expensive in many places as well. And I think as technology improves, they're going to get cheaper. Get a scan every year if your score is not 0, right? Just to make sure that there is no disease progression. The radiation dose is very, very little. Okay, so these are some thoughts. They just released this data, so I'm still looking through it. If I have other thoughts that might be worth sharing, I will share them. But that's really all I wanted to say for now. Let me know what you think. Did you have a chance to look at the study or the videos? I think Nick Norwitz released a video. Dave Feldman released a very short video basically saying thank you. I saw that one. But interesting stuff, man. Super interesting stuff. And I'm super grateful to Dave Feldman, Nick Norwitz, Adrian Sotomoda, Professor Lundquist, and so on. I mean, everyone who was part of this, because it really does clear up some gray area when it comes to this issue of heart disease, cholesterol, and so on. So let me know in the comments. Are you guys paying attention to this data drop? Do you have any insights, anything that I've missed that you think is worth pointing out? I will make a blog post when I get a chance. I'm traveling a little bit over the next few days, so I may not get a chance to make it soon. But whenever I get a chance, I will look at whatever data is available and write something a little bit more detailed, a little bit more research oriented. But thanks for that, and I'll see you in the next one.